Hello, all you freedom-loving people. President Trump met with New York Mayor Mamdani today. That was surprising. The House of Representatives denounced the horrors of socialism, and the U.S. has been secretly working on a 28-point peace plan for Ukraine with Russia. Okay, let's get into it. Today, the House of Representatives passed a resolution that denounced the horrors of socialism. The vote was 285 to 98 with 2 voting present. There were 86 Democrats who joined all Republicans in voting for the resolution. The resolution was introduced by Representative Maria Elvira Salazar, who is a daughter of Cuban immigrants who fled the communist regime of Fidel Castro. The resolution stated that socialist ideology inevitably concentrates power, which repeatedly results in communist regimes, totalitarian governments, and brutal dictatorships. It added that this pattern has led to famines, mass killings, and the deaths of more than 100 million people worldwide. The resolution also called out Vladimir Lenin, Joseph Stalin, Mao Zedong, Fidel Castro, Pol Pot, Kim Jong-il, Kim Jong-un, Daniel Ortega, Hugo Chavez, and Nicolas Maduro as men who committed the greatest crimes in history in the name of socialism. Of course, it doesn't mean that dictators who are not on the list are any less evil than the ones who are. For example, the CCP's Jiang Zemin for the genocide of Falun Gong practitioners and Tibetan Uyghurs in China since 1999. The resolution noted that the implementation of socialism in Venezuela has transformed what was once a prosperous nation into a failed state with the world's highest inflation rate. And the resolution concluded that the United States was founded on the principle that each individual is sacred, a belief that is fundamentally and inherently opposed to any collectivist form of socialism. The resolution came as New York City Mayor-elect Zohran Mamdani, who is a self-described socialist, visited the White House today. President Trump and Mamdani had a bilateral meeting first, and then they spoke with reporters, as usual. Talking with reporters, President Trump called the meeting surprising.
We had discussions on some things. I'm not going to discuss what they were, but that I feel very confident that he can do a very good job. I think he is going to surprise some conservative people, actually. And some very liberal people he won't surprise them because they already like him. We had a meeting today that actually surprised me. He wants to see no crime. He wants to see housing being built. He wants to see rents coming down, all things that I agree with. Now, we may disagree how we get there, the rent coming down. I think one of the things I really gleaned very much today, he'd like to see him come down, ideally, by building a lot of additional housing. Yeah. That's the ultimate way. He agrees with that, and so do I. But if I read the newspapers and the stories, I don't hear that. But I heard him say it today, and I think that's a very positive step. No, I don't expect. I expect to be helping him, not hurting him. A big help, because I want New York City to be great. Look, I love New York City. It's where I come from. I spent a lot of years there. Now I'm right here. We took a big setback with the mayor that we had, Dave de Blasio. I thought it was a tremendous setback for the city. I think this mayor can do some things that are going to be really great. There will be topics that we disagree on. I think we'll probably come to a conclusion, and ultimately he'll convince me, or I'll convince him. It's for the good of New York. Ultimately, it's for the good of New York. I don't care about affiliations or parties or anything else. I want to see if this city could be unbelievable. If he could be a spectacular success, I'd be very happy.
President Trump also said that they discussed illegal immigration at great length.
Threatened to send federal troops to New York City. You both have differences when it comes to ICE agents in New York City. Mr. Mamdani, you call ICE a rogue government entity. I wonder how you reconcile your differences on both of those issues. Well,
I think we're going to work them out, and I think that if we have known murderers and known drug dealers and some very bad people, we want to get them out. And the mayor wants to have peace. We discussed this at great length, actually, maybe more than anything else. He wants to have a safe New York. Ultimately, a safe New York is going to be a great New York. If it's not safe, no matter how well we do with pricing and with anything else, we can talk about anything you want. If you don't have safe streets, it's not going to be a success. So we're going to work together. We're going to make sure that if there are horrible people there, we want to get them out. I think he wants to get them out maybe more than I do. So we'll work together. We discussed it at great length.
And apparently President Trump doesn't mind that Mamdani has called President Trump a fascist in the past.
Are you affirming that you think President Trump is a fascist?
I've spoken about...
That's okay. You can just say yes.
Okay. All right.
Okay. It's easier. It's easier than explaining it. I don't mind.
Yesterday, the Treasury Department announced that it would issue new regulations to bar individuals with unlawful status in the United States from accessing tax credit benefits. The Treasury said that the proposed rulemaking would cover refunded portions of certain individual income tax credits. The proposals would include the Earned Income Tax Credit, Additional Child Tax Credit, American Opportunity Tax Credit, and Savers Match Credit. And under the proposal, these credits would be classified as federal public benefits. That classification would make illegal immigrants ineligible to receive them. But not everyone thinks that this would be fair. Brandon DeBow from the NYU Tax Law Center argued that the Treasury's new interpretation goes against congressional intent and how the law has been applied for years. He said that the current tax code already allows citizen children to receive the child tax credit as long as one parent has a Social Security number. DeBow argued that Congress has consistently made certain mixed status and lawfully present immigrant families eligible for tax credits. He also maintained that changing this would require approval from Congress. But the Treasury said that the Department of Justice recently issued an opinion backing its interpretation of the law, and that the final regulations are expected to take effect starting in the 2026 tax year. And for Americans, President Trump said, for the 2026 tax filing season, taxpayers are expected to take home an additional $91 billion in refunds and keep an additional $30 billion in their paychecks from reduced withholdings. On Wednesday, Judge Jai Cobb of the District Court for the District of Columbia ruled that the Trump administration's deployment of the National Guard in Washington, D.C. to assist the police with law enforcement was unlawful. The federal judge ordered an end to the deployment. On August 11th, President Trump signed a presidential memorandum in which he said the local D.C. government has lost control of public order and safety in the city. So he deployed the troops to deal with rampant crime and violence in the capital and to support federal immigration law enforcement efforts there. Then, over the course of a month, more than 2,300 National Guard troops from 8 states and Washington, D.C. patrolled the Capitol under the command of the U.S. Secretary of the Army. President Trump also deployed hundreds of federal agents to assist in the patrols. But D.C. Government Attorney Mitchell Reich said during the hearing that the Trump administration's deployment was unlawful because no statute authorizes the federal government to carry out law enforcement activities in the District of Columbia. He said that Congress has exclusive jurisdiction or authority over the District of Columbia. The president may use the Guard to deal with riots and similar disturbances. However, before he does so, civil authorities must request assistance, and the D.C. government didn't request help from the president. Cobb held that President Trump's order unlawfully interferes with local officials' authority to control law enforcement in the District of Columbia. She said that the president has authority to call up the National Guard only through the exercise of a specific power outlined in state law and not for whatever reason he sees fit. But Deputy Assistant Attorney General Eric Hamilton argued that the National Guard was carrying out a protective function and they are not doing law enforcement. Hamilton said that a Guard member will detain someone to neutralize what was a threat, and this is consistent with their ability to provide protection. But Cobb granted Washington, D.C.'s request for a preliminary injunction against the Trump administration's deployment of troops in the city. However, she requested a 21-day stay of the order until December 11th to give the administration time to file an appeal. So, is the Russia-Ukraine war close to a ceasefire? Recently, the media reported that the Trump administration had secretly negotiated a 28-point peace plan for Ukraine with Russia. However, on Wednesday night, Russia denied that efforts to end the war in Ukraine were making progress. The White House confirmed yesterday, though, that it has been working with both Russia and Ukraine over the past month to develop a peace plan following media reports of a leaked proposal.
I've seen quite a bit of reporting on the latest with Russia, Ukraine, so let me clarify and give you guys the truth on where it currently stands. President Trump has made it very clear since day one, and even on the campaign trail, that he wants to see this war come to an end. He has grown increasingly frustrated with both sides of this war, Russia and Ukraine alike, for their refusal to commit to a peace agreement. But nevertheless, the president and his national security team are steadfast in seeing this war come to an end, to end the killing and deliver on the president's promise. Special Envoy Witkoff, Marco Rubio, have been working on a plan quietly for about the last month. They've been engaging with both sides, Russia and Ukraine, equally to understand what these countries would commit to in order to see a lasting and durable peace. That's how you get to a peace negotiation, right? That's how it worked with Israel, with respect to Israel and Gaza and all of the Arab countries in the Middle East. That's how we accomplished that historic agreement, which the UN, by the way, voted to commit to and accept this week, which was a huge monumental moment. So they have been engaged with both sides, and these talks are continuing. As always, I'm not going to litigate the details of this plan as it's ongoing and it's in flux, but the president supports this plan. It's a good plan for both Russia and Ukraine, and we believe that it should be acceptable to both sides, and we're working very hard to get it done.
So let's take a look at what this proposal is all about. The plan has 28 points to it, including the confirmation of Ukraine's sovereignty. It also includes a comprehensive non-aggression agreement to be concluded between Russia, Ukraine, and Europe, and the expectation that Russia will cease invading its neighbors and that there will be an end to NATO expansion. However, the plan also says that Ukraine will cede Crimea, Luhansk, and Donetsk to Russia, and that Kherson and Zaporizhia will be frozen along the line of contact, meaning de facto recognition along the line of contact. In addition, there is the recognition of Russian as an official language, the restoration of the previously pro-Moscow Orthodox Church to its rightful place, and so on. In exchange, the U.S. provides security guarantees to Kyiv and Europe in case of a Russian attack. In addition, Russia will be invited to rejoin the Group of Eight. The U.S. will sign an agreement with Russia covering energy, natural resources, infrastructure, artificial intelligence, data centers, and Arctic rare earth metal mining. Overall, most of these points are not new. So, can Ukraine accept these terms? Ukraine and its European allies have previously been vehemently opposed to the prospect of Kyiv giving up any territory. EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen said that she and member state leaders would be contacting Zelensky to discuss the peace plan today. Surprisingly, Zelensky said yesterday that he was ready for honest work with the United States to bring an end to the war with Russia. The Ukrainian president's office confirmed that Zelensky had received the proposal for a truce plan that was drafted by the U.S. side yesterday. Zelensky said on X, the American side presented points of a plan to end the war, their vision. I outlined our key principles. We agree that our team will work on the points to ensure it's all genuine. Senior U.S. officials speaking on condition of anonymity said that the plan was developed immediately after discussions with one of President Zelensky's most senior officials, Rustem Umerov, the Secretary of the Committee on Defense and Security. Umerov agreed to most of the plan with a few modifications and submitted it to President Zelensky. Some European nations expressed concern over the plan, suggesting that Kyiv would have to make territorial concessions to Moscow. EU foreign ministers said yesterday at a meeting in Brussels that they would not accept terms that would allow Ukraine to make excessive concessions. Jean-Noël Barrot, the French foreign minister, said Ukrainians want peace, but peace cannot be a capitulation. Discussions are needed for us to reach a just and durable peace in Ukraine. Johann Wadelfel, the German foreign minister, said today that he sees the plan as a list of issues that need to be urgently discussed between Ukraine and Russia. And Marko Mikkelsen, the Estonia Parliament Foreign Affairs Committee chairman, wrote on X, alongside a photograph of the reported deal, "If Ukraine accepts this, there will be no Ukraine anymore. If Europe accepts this, we must prepare for a direct war with Russia." And today, Putin cautiously welcomed the U.S. peace plan proposal. He said that it could form the basis of a final peace settlement. But Putin also accused Ukraine of opposing the plan. This came after Zelensky gave a televised address today. In his address, Zelensky said that his country is facing one of the most difficult moments in its history. Zelensky also said that he would propose alternatives to the most contentious parts of the plan through his talks with the United States and Europe. Also, Zelensky stressed that he will not violate his oath to defend Ukraine's independence. Zelensky said that everything must be done to ensure that what comes next marks the end of the war, not the end of Ukraine. In the meantime, President Trump said today that he's giving Zelensky until Thursday to accept the proposal. President Trump said that he made many deadlines in the past, but when things go well, he often chooses to extend them. However, he said Thursday seems like the appropriate target this time. Japan and China have seen a flare-up in tensions in recent days. This dispute between Japan and Beijing stems from a statement made earlier this month by Japanese Prime Minister Sanai Takaichi. Takaichi responded on November 7th that a military attack on Taiwan could present a survival-threatening situation for Japan, indicating the potential involvement of Japan's self-defense forces. Beijing, of course, has no tolerance for such statements. But communist-led China and democratic Taiwan have been governed separately since they split in 1949 following a civil war. Beijing still views Taiwan as a breakaway province, however, to be reunified with the mainland by force if necessary. Beijing insists that the issue is purely an internal affair. So the CCP had expressed its strong dissatisfaction with the comment by Takaichi. China has urged Takaichi to retract her Taiwan remarks. Japan's Cabinet Secretary Minoru Kuhara has reiterated on several occasions that the relevant remarks of Prime Minister Takaichi are consistent with the government of Japan's long-standing position. The Japanese government firmly refuses to withdraw its remarks. Even more outrageous, Xu Jian, the Consul General of China in Osaka, took to X to say that Japan's stance is a fatal path chosen by foolish politicians. The X post contained the line, "cut a dirty neck," without a moment of hesitation, in an apparent threat to Takaichi over her Taiwan remarks. This post undoubtedly shocked all parties. Seeing that the matter had become serious, Xu Jian finally deleted the tweet. Verbal counterattacks are inevitable, as are the CCP's economic threats. According to media reports, China will postpone the release of at least 2 Japanese movies. Last Friday, the Beijing government suddenly warned Chinese citizens against travel to Japan, stating that they would be facing significant risks. In response, the 3 major airlines in China, Air China, China Eastern, and China Southern, announced that tickets to Japan that were purchased between that day and December 31st could be refunded or changed free of charge. The CCP thought this move would hit Japan hard, since China is an important tourist source for Japan, accounting for nearly a quarter of its foreign visitors. But this time, Beijing miscalculated. Some critics say that the political travel warnings have done Japan a favor. In recent years, Japan has been suffering from over-tourism. Traffic congestion and environmental stress in Kyoto and other areas have had a serious impact on the quality of life of local residents. If Beijing's travel warning was effective, it would bring fewer tourists. Objectively, it can give Japan's popular tourist cities a chance to catch their breath. It will allow Japan to temporarily ease the pressure of over-tourism without actively imposing travel restrictions. That's why Japan's reaction was so calm. On Saturday, Japan urged the Chinese authorities to respond appropriately and avoid exacerbating the situation in order to mitigate its negative impact. However, the media has observed no decrease in the number of travelers to Japan at China's major airports. When asked by reporters, Chinese travelers have said that they are not interested in politics and do not feel unsafe traveling to Japan. Even if they could get a free refund, they do not plan to change their itinerary. So, when one move fails, the CCP makes another move. On Wednesday, China reimposed its recently lifted suspension of imports of Japanese seafood. China cited the need to monitor treated radioactive water that was released from the crippled Fukushima nuclear complex. Just earlier this month, China had resumed purchasing marine products from Japan after lifting a blanket import ban imposed in August of 2023. Instead, Beijing's pressure helped Takaichi stabilize her position. Support for the Prime Minister among the Japanese public has soared. A nationwide telephone opinion poll conducted by the Kyodo News on November 15th and 16th showed that the approval rating for Takaichi's cabinet was around 70%, which was up 5.5% from the last survey in October. Almost half of Japanese people agree with the right to collective self-defense if something happens in Taiwan. This is related to Japan's natural resources and geographical location. Japan is a resource-poor island nation with insufficient energy to support its industrial system, so it depends on imports. 93% of Japan's crude oil originates from the Middle East. This energy is transported exclusively by giant tankers, all shipping past to Japan, whether via the Taiwan Strait or the Bashi Channel, run through waters near Taiwan. And nearly 90% of Japan's energy imports must pass through these waters. In other words, Japan's national destiny is tied to the sea transport route that is next to Taiwan. Some argue that it is possible to take the long way around to cross the Pacific Ocean. However, the reality is that the distance traveled increases, so does the cost, including insurance and the risk. Consequently, the price of oil and electricity will soar. So Japan's cost of living and industrial competitiveness would come under pressure. For decades, Japan's defense white paper has made it clear that securing the sea lines of communication is vital for the nation's survival. Therefore, the statement that a military attack on Taiwan could prevent a survival-threatening situation for Japan is not just a slogan. If war breaks out in the Taiwan Strait, 90% of Japan's energy resources will be cut off. Power generation will be damaged, factories will shut down, transport will grind to a halt, and the economy will enter a wartime state. So, as tensions between China and Japan escalate, Taiwan has made its stance clear in a timely manner. On November 20th, Taiwan's President Lai Ching-te ate sushi and drank miso soup for lunch to show his support for Taiwan's Japanese ally. Lai posted a photo of himself eating lunch on his Facebook page. He wrote in the message, "Today's lunch is sushi and miso soup." And he included the labels for amberjack from Kagoshima and scallops from Hokkaido. Similar photos were also posted on President Lai's X account with messages and hashtags written in Japanese. In a video shared on his Instagram page, Lai reminded his fans that it was probably a good time to eat Japanese food. President Lai also accused Beijing of seriously affecting regional peace in the escalating dispute. Speaking at the Bloomberg New Economy Forum on Wednesday, Singaporean Prime Minister Lawrence Wong Sayan Tsai said that Singapore and other Southeast Asian countries support Japan, playing a more significant regional role, particularly in terms of security, in order to promote greater stability. He also implied that the CCP was overreacting, suggesting that Japan would prefer to stabilize relations with China than to escalate the situation. And Japan's tough stance on Beijing is also supported by America. U.S. Ambassador to Japan, George Glass, has vowed that Washington will stand with Tokyo in this dispute. Glass has taken to social media several times since the dispute erupted to criticize China and Chinese officials for their response to remarks that Takaichi made. China's moves are very unhelpful and undermine regional stability, Glass told reporters after meeting with the Japanese foreign minister. He said, "This is a classic case of Chinese economic coercion. I just want to say directly from the president and from myself and from the embassy for the prime minister, we have your back. For the people of Japan, we have your back. We will continue to push back everywhere we can, and we are here to help in any way we can." And that's a wrap for this episode. Thank you so much for your support of Front Page. Please remember to leave a comment below the video. This is really helping us to be seen all around the world. The more people who watch Front Page, the more freedom-loving people the world will have. And please hit the like button and hit the notification bell after subscribing. And please share this video with your friends and family because everybody deserves to know the truth.